Morning. I am Ricardo Roberto, and I am leading government affairs for the Coppell Chamber this year. And as part of that process, over the years, we have always introduced political candidates to our community and to our membership. And we are currently on Zoom with candidate Brianna Hinojosa, who is running for re-election as city council. So she should be a familiar person to you. And this is, never as good as actually being in person and allowing our members to ask the questions. But we'd like to thank you for your time, Brianna. And please just start by introducing yourself to the community and talking about your vision and your issues, and then we'll get into the question part of the discussion.
Absolutely. And I'm going to apologize on camera for now because I just realized that you can see my daughter in the back on occasion. So this is called part of remote working while I'm at my standing desk. But I'm Brianna Hinojosa-Smith. Thank you so much, Ricardo, for the opportunity, and to the Chamber for allowing us the opportunity to introduce ourselves and to have a conversation about our vision and kind of our reason for running. And I realized that in person would be so much better, and we're trying to make the best of the situation under the current circumstances. And so really, I guess, hoping that we will get back to some normal somewhat soon. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I first was elected to Coppell City Council Place 3 in 2005, was reelected in 2008 and in 2011. I stepped down in 2012 actually to run for Congressional District 6 in 2012, and then was unsuccessful, which was fine, and then had some health issues, and so sat out a couple of years. I was then elected to place 2, which is what I'm running for now. I was elected to place 2 in 2015, reelected in 2018, and I'm up for reelection right now. So I have served 13 years on the Coppell City Council. Prior to that, I was a graduate of the Coppell Leadership, of CPAC, of CERT. I served on the Education Board with the city, and have done also a lot on several of our CISD boards and commissions. So I've tried to be really active in our community. I have 2 children. Ivan is a sophomore at New Tech. My daughter, Gabriella, is a 6th grader at Middle School East. And again, have served on a variety of boards and commissions for the CISD. I used to be board chair of the Las Colinas Medical Center, which is our closest hospital here, and also was a member of the YMCA for a while. So again, I'm running for re-election, and Ricardo, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know that you have some questions for me.
So as I told you previously, I really like this to be just a very normal, comfortable conversation. And so I'll start with the questions, but then we'll try to cover the content. We might not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, the big one to start is always, why are you running for council, especially after having served for some time? And, why should your voters choose you over your opponent?
Absolutely. So again, this is a contested race, and so for place 2.
Mm-hmm.
I am running for city council. Again, have served for 13 years and understand it's important to have new blood and new people come in. I think it's also important to have a historical perspective and to have a transition. There's been a lot that has happened in the city since I was first elected in 2005 that has happened both in the commercial side, on the residential side, and so much that we've just been through that I think the historical perspective is very important. And we've got several council members and even our mayor who is not running for re-election this year. So from a seniority standpoint, that really leaves me to help out, to provide some of that input and to really help the new council members come in and to transition, to help with understanding where we've come from and where we're going. We've worked so hard on our 2030 plan, which I feel has been extremely successful, and have now started to delve into our 2040 plan. And I think it's very important from a continuity standpoint to have, council members or mayor or others in that position to help with transition over time. So, right now I really want to, there's a lot that we're doing in the 2040 side. A little bit about me, my background. I'm actually, when I'm not serving on council, I'm also a patent attorney. I'm the director of legal for digital and technology at Yum Brands. And, a big part of our 2040 plan is becoming a smart city and making sure that we are ready for technological advancements and kind of digital transformation across the board. And the reality is that in every industry, including cities or municipalities, we're seeing that particular transformation is accelerated because of the pandemic that we've gone through, and is so much a needed effort or initiative, and maybe something that we could have put off for a few years and needs to be done sooner rather than later. So when we talk about kind of why me over my opponent, again, I think first of all, I appreciate everybody running, and that's what we're about, and we want everybody to go out and vote. I think for me, it's that I bring the historical perspective. I am an electrical engineer and I'm an attorney, and so I bring that mindset. I've got my MBA, so always thinking also from our financial, perspective and being fiscally responsible as a city. And so I feel like I can wear a lot of different hats, plus have lived in the city now since 2002, and then again have served for 13 years.
Okay.
So,
And so you've introduced this idea of the 2040 plan and the issue of becoming a smart city and how essential that is right now. Obviously, or we wouldn't be on an electronic discussion. We'd be sitting in the same place and probably a room with 40 or 50 people. But so moving ahead, what are the 2 or 3 biggest issues that you see that you are going to try to implement in this next term of office? How would you advance them, and how would you pay for them? Because we do have some significant financial issues and fiscal issues that confront us right now.
absolutely. I'll start out by saying that one of the things that I've really appreciated about prior mayors and council, current mayors and council, and staff, right, past and present, is the fact that I find this to be a very fiscally responsible city. The staff has always done a truly phenomenal job of making sure that we always understand where's the money coming from, how does that impact our bottom line, and what are our options. We always have options on where we want to spend and what we want to do and how we want to prioritize that. So I think that's key. And I just want to make sure I give kudos where kudos is due. You talk about kind of where we want to provide some focus as I am reelected. I think the fact is that there's a couple different things, from smart city, from sales tax issues that we know are coming down the legislature with origination, destination. But I think first and foremost is the fact that we've got to deal with what's currently in front of us, and that is the impact that the pandemic has had on our community. And the impact has really been seen more than anything in our commercial businesses. Which that's why I appreciate this forum, because the chamber has been a huge and very important partner from the business perspective, and making sure that we're out there supporting our businesses. And as we know, we lost a lot of businesses because of the pandemic, and others are currently suffering because still we don't have that, everything is not back to normal. And so what are we going to do to help our business community in thriving and surviving and getting back to where we were? I look at Old Town, and we've had a lot of change there. We've had even some closures, and it's going to be important that we start thinking about what do we need down there? How do we how are we going to be creative and think outside the box in not only we want to attract businesses, we also want to retain the ones we have, um, helping even with the workforce, because I think that's also been an issue. I know that I can go to some of the different restaurants and they have said there's issues with even just finding people to come to work. And there's just a lot that that I think needs to be a top priority for us as a council of how do we partner with the chamber? How do we partner with our businesses, our economic development team, and just making sure that our business community survives and thrives going forward. So definitely I think that's a big key. I think the other kind of issue before us is the fact that, we've been talking about it for years and it looks like it's coming down the pipeline, is going from our sales tax from origination to destination. And that obviously is going to affect the revenue, our sales tax revenue. And our city, thankfully, our staff has been planning for that, and our council, and we've been talking about it now for a few years because it's always seemed to be a top issue in the legislature. And I think now is probably the time that we're going to see it actually implemented or passed. So I feel like we're in a good place, but that doesn't mean that we can just say, okay, we're done. We're going to have to, really think through how that impacts the bottom line, how that impacts spending, or different projects that we have before us. And then also think through like any areas where we can fill in some gaps. What are the types of businesses that we need to bring and attract to Coppell so that we can make up for some of that potential lost sales tax revenue?
Okay, and just kind of trying to drill down a little bit more for specificity, and then this is kind of jumping to a question which asks this particular question is, since we know that we have been negatively affected by the pandemic, since we face the loss of a significant amount of tax revenue because of the change from taxation at origin to taxation at destination, the populace is always going to ask, and has been asking for years, do we really have a city that delivers services in a cost-effective manner? And if city staff and city council are examining those issues, how would you respond to that? And how do you respond to it knowing that potentially we're going to have a lot less money to get things done?
Great question. And I would say, yes, I do feel like we provide services in a efficient and effective manner. And I do feel like there are opportunities, though. There's always going to be opportunities for us to look where we might need to trim or cut if necessary. But those conversations have already been going on for a while. And that's the fact that that's what I do appreciate about our staff and our council and our mayor currently, is the fact that we've started to delve into those areas of, where we've really challenged our staff to say, where can we cut? What do we need to cut? And there are also some areas where we might have to see some increase in fees that haven't been increased in 15, 20 years. And in order for us to be competitive and to keep providing the services that we need to, there might need to be an increase in some fees. And
okay, so just, all right,
yeah.
so but again, I really would think that if we're in a room with 50 people that are, our business community and other members of the community, it would be okay. So what are you talking about cutting? Where are we making cuts? Where are the 2 or 3 places that you just really see that there's going to be a change? There might be budget cuts, and that these are going to affect people. And how are we managing that?
Where are we going to see budget cuts? I mean, I think that's something that one of the things that we have asked and gone back to our staff so that we can prepare for budget and said, can you look for where we might be able to cut? I honestly can't tell you right now where exactly we'll look to cut. It could be, I mean, here's the thing. We could say, staff could come back and say, we might have to limit the hours of the core, but then the people aren't going to be happy because they want extended hours of the core, right? And so we're having to figure out where we can give and take. Now, with the pandemic, we ended up having to, like, our library was closed, our senior center was closed. There were already some things that ended up having to be cut without realizing that we were going to have to cut them, because of the pandemic. And it was a result that actually is going to be, something that we were already having to, how can I say this? We're already saving in some of those spaces because it happened as a result of the pandemic. And I'd hate to say I don't know right now where I would cut or what would need to be cut, because I really think it's important that we go through line by line of our budget and understand where are we going to be impacted. I mean, I want us to be financially responsible, but I want to make sure that, we're not driving down Samuel and we're constantly hitting potholes, because we've had to put that on hold, and it can't be fixed, right? I mean, there are several projects that are currently in motion. There's others that have been waiting to be in motion, and we want to make sure that we continue to be a city that we maintain our streets, that we provide services at the core, that we have a senior center, that we have parks for our, that are safe for our children. That's why people move to Coppell, right? They want all of these different things. They want a community that provides all these services. And yes, there are going to have to be some potential, tweaks, but I don't know exactly where that will be, because I think a lot of it is going to be dictated by what did the pandemic do for us, and then what does that mean going forward. And so I guess I can't really answer the question of where right now we would cut or where I necessarily would cut, because I find us to be a city that has been, and a staff that has done such a phenomenal job of making sure that we're providing the services for our community. We had to build a fourth fire station. We wanted to make sure that we could provide the services to that side of town, and especially that particular side of town is predominantly commercial business. And there's an expectation that we are going to respond within a certain amount of time or under that amount of time. And in order to do that, and in order for us to make safety, a priority in our community, a fourth fire station had to be built, right? So there are going to be some things that just have to be done, that are a priority for our community.
Okay, and this is yet another one of the questions, but if there's going to be tweaks, if you guys are going to be going line by line, which my assumption would have been that this was already long ongoing, because we've known that the change in taxation might occur for at least a year, I would think.
Right.
But then how transparent is that going to be for everyone in the community? I mean, once you guys start looking at that budget, after the legislature comes up with this decision, I mean, how much is the public going to know before cuts are made or fees are raised? How transparent will the entire process be? What will be public access to that process?
I think to answer your first question, so you're right. We've known that this was coming down the pipeline, which is why over time you've seen, there have been conversations about raising fees along the way, for rental properties. I can't think of everything right now, but there have been tweaks along the way already, where staff has come forward and said, hey, look, we haven't raised these fees for 15 years or 12 years or whatever it may be. And if you look at our surrounding cities and what we're providing, we need to raise these fees. So that has been ongoing. As far as transparency, first and foremost, our council meetings are all public. Our budget meetings are all public. Everybody can come. And before we adopt our budget, we have open meetings for everybody and have conversations. And we're always available to talk to our constituents, for them to send messages, for them to come to citizens appearance, for them, transparency is one of the things that I truly do feel like we do well. Even with building our art center, there was tons of meetings to make sure that everybody was in the know, what it was going to cost, what we were going to do, why we were going to do it, where the money was going to come from. there's always been that open dialogue of, you know, this is what we're looking to do. And people will, you know what, here's the thing too, right? Like people are not always going to be happy with whatever the tweaks might be. Like I said, it might be that there has to be reduced hours at the YMCA because, or there has to be less events on, you know, that we have outdoors because that requires us to pay staff on weekends. Like we had a movie night the other night, or we had a cover band, a journey band, and there was tons of people. That requires staff. That requires them to come and clean on, you know, outside of the Monday through Friday. That requires police officers. But yet people want some of those events. So there's going to have to be some conversation, right? Of we can't have all those events and still, you know, stay within our fiscally responsible, you know, duties on this end. And there's going to have to be some tweaks along the way. And it's always what's in the best interest of our city overall, what's in the best interest of all of our community and our citizens, and where's there going to be the largest impact. And I'm just going to say right now too, are we going to get it absolutely right? Maybe not, but we are open to having that conversation. And the other thing is I really look to, a lot of times I look to our staff. I mean, Jennifer and her team are amazing, and they can come and say, if you do X, this is what happens. If you do Y, this is what happens. And I feel like we have a great council that isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. Everybody comes with different thoughts and different ideas. At the end of the day, we are a unified council, but everybody's willing to throw out their ideas, and they come from different perspectives and they come from different industries. And I think that's what makes us such a great group of people to work with, because we don't all think alike.
We have just a few minutes left, so there's a couple things, and you know, again, this is a chamber forum for you, and you had talked about the pandemic's effect on different businesses, and the whole issue of development or redevelopment in this community is a big one, and you know, a lot of small businesses in the chamber as well as the bigger businesses on the west side. How do we approach attracting businesses, helping businesses that are here, and then the whole issue now, I suppose, which is redevelopment of different areas of the city? What do you see happening there, and what do you see as being the proper approach to a complex issue that really helps make sure that this is an economically viable community for the future?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I think is that I think we've always, and not always, but I think there's always been conversation of we're not going to be a destination city. Like we're not going to be a South Lake, right? Or an Allen, but we want to make sure that we provide the services that people need here in Coppell, right? We just like with Old Town, we want people to be able to live there and walk and go eat, go get their hair done, whatever it may be, right? We have the farmers market. We want people to eat and shop and live and play and do everything in Coppell and have what they need. I think that's important. I think one of the things that we've talked about for a while, and I think is a priority, is we talk about some of these hot spots of, you know, revitalization. I think of off the top of my head, I think of Moore and Sandy Lake, and kind of, you know, having some facade uplifts for our city. I think of Beltline and MacArthur, right? And we've talked about what can we do there. There's some other, I think, areas that we just consider to be hotspots that I think as a city, both our economic development, director, Mindy Hurley, who I know sits on the chamber, and we do a lot with the chamber, is how can we make sure that we do we incentivize our landlords or our businesses with our facade uplifts, right? We want this to be a great looking city. And I think that will also help attract some of the empty spaces that we have there. I think the other thing is, working with our chamber and the city, and just trying to figure out um, where are the empty areas, and what type of business can we go and get. It's competitive across the board, right? It's competitive with the Irvings and the South Lakes and the Friscos and everybody else. And so what are we doing on our end? And from a council perspective, we can look at incentives, and, we need to be creative and not say, well, this is what we do and what we've always done, and we're not willing to do anything different. The reality is that we might have to step outside some comfort zones and be creative on our incentive packages so that we can attract the right businesses for our community. And I think we've shown in the past that we're willing to do that. And I would hope that we'll continue to do that. So those are just a couple of the ideas that I've thought about. I think the other thing is looking at our community and our businesses that we have, and finding out, like, from a retention standpoint, what is it that's working well, or what are their needs, or what else can we do as a city, as a chamber, to partner with them to make sure that they continue to be successful? Is it that we need to do something different from signage standpoint? Is it something that, they're located in a place and they're just not visible? Maybe we need to be creative. We did that with the corner where Muya used to be, and now, we're getting the biscuit bar, or I can't even think of the name of it, but I think it's the biscuit bar. I know they have biscuits and tater tots, so but again, there are going to be times that we're going to have to be creative. I can tell you that as someone who does intellectual property, like, I know a business logo is important. Their colors are important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's their brand. And so what can we do with helping in the branding of our businesses so that they can be, viable in our community? And I think we're going to have to be creative, because it's extremely competitive all around.
Okay. Well, I guess no, we could keep going on that one, because
I know. And
it's the whole dynamic here of help for small businesses versus incentives for large business. I think as a small business person, and having been in a little strip mall over there, Braywood, where there was a lot of issues about the appearance of that particular place. Discussions with city council people and other, it's just, what can we do? And yes, I'm looking forward to all my favorite restaurants reopening, and hoping that things return to normal very soon for all of the people who work in this city. So unfortunately, yeah, we could go on forever. We're out of time, and I just really like to thank you for coming. Any last words for us?
No, you know what, I just want to, I guess, if anything, and I know that, again, this is a chamber venue or platform, and I really just want to say thank you, and thank you to the chamber for just being a great partner to the city. The reality is that, that really is an important relationship, and one that we value very much. So just wanted to say thank you. And then I think the other thing is, for anybody who's listening, is just to go out and vote. At the end of the day, it really is what matters. That's how you're heard. That's why we have the opportunity and the right to go and vote. And so I just really, April 19th is when we start early voting. Election day is May 1st. And just want to encourage everybody to please go out and vote.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Layla, you want to wrap this up? Uh-oh. Okay.